Corporate office in Chicago. Panoramic view of the city under a cloudy sky. Impeccably dressed. Typing frantically on the computer. The camera zooms in on the screen, where an email has just arrived. Subject * annual Caldwell retreat. Participant confirmation. I froze. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. The ambient noise faded, replaced by a sharp ringing in my ears. Quick, disjointed flashbacks flooded the screen. An 8-year-old girl sitting alone on the stairs, watching her family laugh in the dining room. Danielle, my older sister, receiving a pearl necklace from Eleanor, my mother, while Meredith holds an empty gift box. My father, Richard, packing his suitcase for yet another business trip. Without saying goodbye, I snapped back to the present. The email was open. My name is Meredith Caldwell, 32 years old, corporate strategist in Chicago. And I've always been left out by my family. Always excluded from family events and celebrations. Dear Caldwell family members, accept my name. We confirm your 5-day stay in Cape Cod. I slammed the laptop shut with a sharp click. My expression, once neutral, now revealed an old wound that had never healed. I grabbed my phone and dialed the only number that still connected me to that family. Sophia Reynolds, my best friend. She answered. My voice came out as a whisper, almost breathless. They did it again, sophomore. Sophia took a deep breath on the other end. A loaded pause. Mayor, you need to see something. The Outer Banks house is up for sale. I'm sending it to you now, *. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The listing glowed on my laptop screen. Perfectly staged photos of the house I'd sworn never to set foot in again. Waterfront property in Outer Banks, rare opportunity. Every image was a stab to the heart. The porch where my father had taught me to tie nautical knots. The kitchen where I'd burned gingerbread cookies at 12. And Danielle had laughed until she cried, calling me useless. The living room with the grand piano no one ever played. Just to prove we could afford one. But the worst part wasn't that the house was for sale. It was that no one had told me. My hands trembled as I scoured my old emails, searching for some overlooked message, some warning I might have missed. Nothing. Just their silence as always. Until I found the PDF buried deep in my documents folder. My father's will. I'd read it so many times after his death, hoping to find some crumb of affection. Some sign he'd remembered me. This time though one line jumped out as if bolded. In case of negligence or attempted non-consensual sale by primary heirs, a secondary beneficiary may claim the property upon proof of the deceased's documented intent. Negligence. Negligence. The word echoed in my head like a scream. They weren't just excluding me from the retreat. They were erasing every trace of me from that house. Selling our memories as if they were just bricks and paint. That's when Sophia called, her voice restrained, as if afraid I'd collapse. Mayor, you need to hear this. And then she sent me the audio file. My father's voice, hoarse and weary, like in those final months before the cancer took him. I want Meredith to have this place. She's the only one who truly sees what it means. The ground vanished beneath my feet. And for the first time in years, I knew exactly what to do. I've always been good at strategy. It's what kept me alive in that family, observing in silence, planning every move. But now, I wasn't playing to survive. I was playing to win. Sophia became my accomplice, my anchor. While I tore through boxes of documents in my Chicago apartment, she dug through records in Atlanta. The next day, she flew to meet me, her paralegal access opening doors I didn't even know existed. Every discovery was a punch to the gut, and a step forward. I found the messages first. Old emails between Danielle and my mother, full of laughter and emojis, discussing how to simplify the family's properties. Meredith never cared about that house anyway. Danielle had written, as if I were a stranger. Not the sister who spent every childhood vacation on that porch, waiting for someone to notice I was there. But the worst came later. An audio file Sophia extracted from my father's old assistant. In it, Danielle said in that sweet voice that fooled everyone. If Meredith thinks she's entitled to anything, we just have to say Dad wasn't lucid at the end. No one will question it. I nearly crushed my phone in my hand. The pieces started falling into place. The will amended 2 weeks before his death. The medical bills showing high doses of morphine, but no record of mental confusion. And then the final piece. A draft letter in my father's laptop, never sent. Asterisk, Mary, I know I failed you. This house is yours, no matter what happens. Asterisk. On the recording, he called me Mary. No one had called me that since I was 7. Sophia looked at me through the screen during our nightly call, her dark eyes blazing. You have everything now, she said. And I did. Not just evidence. I had the truth. And for the first time, the power to use it. I spread the proof across the kitchen table, recordings, emails, the altered will, like a general mapping out her final attack. Sophia bit her lip, staring at it all. Asterisk, Mayor, you have 2 options. Sue and drag this out for years, or play by the rules they invented. Asterisk. That's when I understood. They had always used silence as a weapon, forgetting as a strategy. But me? I'd do things differently. The next day, I was in my car, driving to Outer Banks with a 3 p.m. appointment with the realtor, my life savings in a check, and the most important thing, my father's recording on my phone. A smile on my face that would make Danielle choke on her rage. The check in my hand weighed more than its dollar amount. It was my entire life savings. Every penny scrimped while I watched Danielle blow our inheritance on designer bags and Caribbean trips. When I arrived in Outer Banks, I was so direct the realtor thought I was insane when I said, asterisk, I want to buy it. Cash. Today. Asterisk. The realtor looked at me with that expression of pity disguised as professionalism. He must have thought I was just another bitter heir in a family feud. Until I played my father's recording on my phone's speaker. My father's voice echoed through that empty living room. And for the first time in 10 years, someone in that house was finally listening to him. I want Meredith to have this place. I signed the papers with the pen Sophia had lent me, the same one she used to draft contracts at the law firm. The symbolism almost made me laugh. When the keys landed in my palm with a satisfying weight, carrying the echoes of every time I'd been told, this house isn't yours. But now it was. And Cape Cod? That would be the icing on the cake. Signing the contract was the easiest thing I'd done in years. The house was mine before the sun even set over Outer Banks. As the ink dried, I called the very resort in Cape Cod where my family was about to arrive for their precious annual retreat. The one I'd been so conveniently forgotten from. I'd like to book the master suite, I said, swiping my card without hesitation. For the same dates as the Caldwell reservation. Oh, and please inform the front desk that only Mrs. Meredith Caldwell has a confirmed booking. Sophia nearly choked on her wine when she heard me. You're not actually going there, are you? She asked, equal parts shocked and impressed. Not yet, I replied, running my fingers over the keys that now glinted in the sunset. First, I want them to taste their own poison. Let them arrive and find out for the first time. They're the ones left outside. Sophia and I said our goodbyes with a hug, agreeing to meet the next day. As I drove back to Chicago, my playlist shuffled to that old folk song my father used to sing on the rare weekends we spent together. This time I didn't skip it. I let the bittersweet notes fill the car as I plotted my next moves. They thought they were playing chess with me, but they hadn't realized. I was already 3 steps ahead. And checkmate? That would be all mine. The next morning, the curtains in my resort room barely muffled the view of the parking lot. My fingers dug into the fabric as I watched the Caldwell family car pull in. Danielle stepped out first, of course, her stilettos sinking into the soft sand, her camera-ready smile already in place. My mother followed, that same pearl necklace she wore for special occasions, draped around her neck. Robert and Margaret looked irritated, probably from the long drive. It was Uncle Robert who approached the front desk first. Through the glass I read his lips. Caldwell party. Reservation for 5. The clerk, the same young man I'd tipped generously, played his part perfectly. I watched his finger drag slowly down the guest list before stopping with calculated drama. We only have a booking for Mrs. Meredith Caldwell. Master Suite Ocean View. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Danielle paled as if she'd seen a ghost. My mother gripped the counter like she might faint. There must be some mistake, she said, her voice trembling an octave higher than usual. No mistake, ma'am. Asterisk, the clerk replied. sliding a copy of the reservation across the counter. Mrs. Caldwell was explicit, restricted access. That was when Danielle noticed the white envelope I'd left conspicuously on display. Her hands shook as she tore it open, and I almost heard her muffled scream when she read my one-line message. "Who's the spare now?" My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Sophia. "They're already calling lawyers." I smiled, stepping back from the window. The war had only just begun. But the first battle? That was already mine. The final stand. The small-town courthouse in Cape Cod wasn't the grand stage I'd imagined for our final showdown. The musty air, the worn wooden benches. It was almost laughable that our family war would end in a place so ordinary. Danielle was already there when I walked in, dressed like she was attending a Vogue shoot. A pristine white pantsuit, sleek hair, a plastic smile for the cameras outside. My lawyer, a shrewd, compact man named Harris, squeezed my arm as the Caldwells took their positions. "Remember," he whispered, "we're not here to prove you deserve the house. We're here to prove they always knew it was yours." Danielle led with the move I'd expected. My father wasn't mentally sound when he made those recordings. Her voice was honeyed, convincing, until Harris played the audio Sophia had uncovered. The one where Danielle explicitly instructed a doctor to emphasize Dad's delusions in the reports. I saw Judge Archer's brow furrow, saw my mother shrink in her seat. But it was Danielle's face, the flash of raw panic, that made my breath catch. She turned to her lawyer, whispering something desperate. That's when I stood without permission and walked to the front of the room. "Miss Caldwell," the judge said, surprised. "Do you have something to say?" "No, Your Honor." I dropped the final recording into the court's evidence player. The one where my father, clear as day, dictated the exact clause that protected me. "I just want everyone to hear this." When his voice filled the room, steady, lucid, undeniable, even the reporters in the back fell silent. My mother started crying. Danielle looked at me like I'd spit on our father's grave. And for the first time in 30 years, I smiled back at her. No fear. No guilt. Just the truth finally set free. The hammer falls. The judge's gavel cracked like thunder in the stuffy courtroom. "Based on the evidence presented," Judge Archer declared, "I deny the Caldwell family's petition." The words echoed off the dark wood paneling. For a second, everything moved in slow motion. I watched Danielle's face collapse like melting frosting. My mother stifled a sob behind her hands. And the judge wasn't done. "The law unequivocally sides with Mrs. Meredith Caldwell." He said, looking straight at me. "The Outer Banks property remains in her name, as per the original terms of Richard Caldwell's will." Danielle shot up like she'd been electrocuted. "This is outrageous." "Counselor Fisher," the judge snapped, raising his voice for the first time. "Your client has tested the limits of this court's patience. One more word, and I'll hold her in contempt." My lawyer gripped my shoulder, but I barely felt it. There was a storm roaring in my chest. Relief, victory, a fire so fierce my legs trembled. When I turned to face my family, I saw something in their eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. Fear of me. It was Eleanor, my mother, who broke the silence. "Meredith, please." She reached out as if to touch my arm, but I stepped back. "No, Mom." My voice came out steadier than I expected. "You spent my entire life erasing me. From family photos, from conversations, from decisions. But today, I pressed the judge's ruling against my chest. Today you learned some things can't be erased. Sophia waited for me in the hallway, silent tears streaming down the widest smile I'd ever seen. When we hugged, she whispered in my ear. He knew, Mayor. Your father always knew this day would come. And as we walked out of the courthouse, for the first time in 32 years, I let myself believe maybe he really had. That somewhere, somehow, he was watching his daughter finally raise her voice and be heard. The house that remembers. The Outer Banks house breathed memories. Every floorboard creaked a different recollection as I stepped inside, this time as its owner. The scent of salt water and aged wood transported me to summers when my father pretended not to notice Danielle, rolling her eyes at my attempts to help him fix the porch railing. I went straight to the attic, that dusty, stifling space that had always been my refuge. Faint light from the tiny window illuminated a forgotten shoebox in the corner, veiled in cobwebs. My hands shook as I lifted the lid. There it was. The seashell mobile I'd made with my father when I was 7. The strings were frayed, some shells cracked, but still hanging like tiny trophies from a time when he'd still tried to be my dad. I remembered his tired smile as he taught me to tie the knots, his patience when my small fingers fumbled. Asterisk, you've got to pull tight, Mary, so it holds even in the wind. Asterisk. I walked downstairs slowly, the mobile swaying in my hand. The back porch still had the same metal hook where he used to hang his hammock. Without thinking, I tied my fragile childhood craft there, its shells chiming softly in the sea breeze. The sunset painted the sky orange and purple, just like that distant evening when my father lifted me up to watch together. The tears finally came, but not from sadness, from something more complex. The understanding that even the most broken relationships hold fragments of real love. Fragments worth keeping. The mobile spun lazily, casting dancing shadows on the porch boards. For the first time in decades, I didn't feel alone in that house. Tides of peace. The moving truck had left hours ago, taking the last ghosts of abandonment with it. Sophia scrubbed the final patch of porch floor, while I shelved boxes of my father's old books, now exactly where they belonged. The smell of fresh wax and pine mixed with the salt air. "You're really staying here?" Sophia asked, tossing dirty water over the railing. Her tone was casual, but I knew the worry beneath it. I looked around, at the height marks on the kitchen doorframe. Mine always 2 centimeters shorter than Danielle's, despite being the same age. At the living room table where Dad taught me chess on rainy nights. At the attic window where I'd watch him fish, never brave enough to ask to join. "I'm not staying in the past if that's what worries you," I said, tracing the spine of his favorite navigation book. I'm just reclaiming what was always mine. Sophia grinned, understanding more than my words could say. She threw the rag at me and bolted to the kitchen when I tried to retaliate. Our laughter echoed through the empty house, filling spaces that had been silent too long. That night, we sat on the porch with wine glasses, watching waves break in the darkness. The seashell mobile chimed above us, its shadow dancing between us like a third guest. "They erased me." I murmured more to myself. But I never disappeared. Sophia raised her glass, her moonlit eyes glistening. "And you never will." And as the sea kept its eternal rhythm, I felt something I'd never known in that house, peace. Not the peace of forgetting, but of rediscovery. Of my father. Of my story. Of myself. The house finally breathed free. And so did I. So this house stopped being a symbol of hurt, and became where I found myself again. But this story isn't just about inheritances, lawsuits, or revenge. It's about remembering your voice deserves to be heard, even when they try to silence it. Like this journey. If you've ever felt erased too, smash that like button. Let's turn whispers into waves. Subscribe for more stories where we don't just speak up, we roar.